Hi everyone, I'm Mike from My Travel BF, and I'm here today to talk about 8 culture shocks I've had since moving to Spain as an American. Now, I've been here for 6 months now, and I also lived in Spain for 2 years before, as well as studied here for a semester. So that means I'm going to skip over some of the more simple culture shocks that a lot of people experience when they first move to Spain, such as people not necessarily speaking English and all the meal times being a little bit later than the US, particularly dinner being a lot later than the US. So we're going to get right to it with number 1. So, the number 1 culture shock of living in Spain is having to call waiters over to get their attention. I feel so rude as an American doing it, and especially an American who has worked in the service industry. You would never do that in the US because it's super rude, because generally waiters or servers are just waiting on you and they are constantly coming over to refill your drink, to see how your food is, because they're working on tips. Thankfully, Spain pays their servers and bar staff, restaurant staff a healthy wage, so they're not living on tips, nor is it really expected to tip a lot anyways. At least nothing compared to the US, and for most things, especially like getting a drink, it's not even expected at all. That's something I knew having lived in Spain before, which is why it's not a culture shock to not tip here. However, calling waiters over is still something that feels like a culture shock to me after all these years, because I just feel rude doing it, even though it is part of the culture here and it's not really a big deal. Alright, another culture shock here after especially working here for a long time is the stereotype that Spanish people are very blunt or direct. Now, that might be the case if they say, hey, it looks like you put on a little bit of weight, or I don't like your outfit today, something like that. In that sense, Spanish people are much more direct than people in the US, because those are things most Americans would never say. However, when it comes to work, Spanish people really aren't that direct, and it might be just my position at work and where I'm at in my school, but I find that if somebody has an issue with you, they might not bring it up to you directly, or might not even bring it up to you right away. They might kind of wait or go around and talk to someone else who's a different supervisor of yours, so they don't really have to take responsibility for it. But nobody wants to have those general conflicts going on at work, and that's something I've noticed that kind of goes against the traditional Spanish stereotype of being more blunt or direct. It's been a little bit of a shock, because sometimes at work, I really just want to communicate and get things done right away. If there's an issue, I like to bring it up. So again, that might be shocking for them, but the way they do it of kind of going around and circumventing that stereotype that's traditional about being blunt and direct in the workplace, it doesn't really follow, and it's a little shocking to me based on how a lot of Spaniards are in a social setting. On to culture shock number 3 about living in Spain. Dogs are off leash a ton. This is true in big cities like Madrid, where we're living now, as well as smaller cities. Obviously, it's more of an issue in some cities than others, or really a non-issue depending on how you look at it. Dogs are better behaved than a lot of dogs in the US, but it's still a shock to just see dogs kind of off leash following people around, especially when our dog that we brought here, Churro, does not do well off leash, especially in a city with traffic, with a bunch of other people, kids playing. So we keep her on leash just to be safe, but it's been a shock just seeing how many dogs are off leash, especially when they come up and say hi to her. She generally does well with it, but you can tell she does want to be off leash, so it's something coming with a dog this time we've noticed a lot more. Alright, culture shock of living in Spain number 4 is actually something we touched upon in our video right up here about annoying things we've noticed living in Spain. That is the work-life balance. I generally don't find there to be a great work-life balance in Spain compared to what I guess I expected, or what a lot of people expect of Spanish work-life balance, as well as European work-life balance. The reason for that is a lot of people might go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, work until 1 to 2 o'clock, have maybe a 3-4 hour break for lunch, to be able to go home, eat lunch, maybe take that siesta that's so famous from here, which I don't actually find a lot of people take, but then they go back to work from maybe 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So it can really just be a long day, and I don't know, maybe it's me as an American, used to the American work schedule, where I'd rather work, say, for 8 hours, and then have 8 hours of free time, and then 8 hours to sleep. To me, I would be more productive than taking a break and then going back to work. I know some students at school have a long break for lunch and then they go back only for an hour and a half. Why not take that hour and a half and put it right at the end of the school day and then just go home after that? To me, that makes a lot more sense than kind of having this long lunch and then going back just for a little bit of work. Just get it all done, take a little bit shorter lunch, and to me, I think you have a better work-life balance there. Now, in saying that, this is also something we touched on in that other video when we talked about work-life balance. It's that people here have a better and a healthier relationship with their job and with work than in the United States. In the United States, for example, one of the first things you ask someone or say about yourself is what you do, what your job is. It's really part of your identity, whereas in Spain, it's not something they bring up, and it's not really something that's talked about as really being a big part of your identity, nor for most jobs have I found that it's expected to be attached to your job, to be fully connected once work ends. Most people are able to leave work and then just enjoy their free time, enjoy their family time. So in that sense, Spain does have a much better work-life balance. I guess the shock has really been with the timetable or the schedule of work, where I just don't find it to be super productive, and I think it takes away from that work-life balance that is traditionally thought of or talked about in terms of Spain and Europe. All right, culture shock number 5 is something that I've noticed working in schools, especially with a lot of students, even from a 5th and 6th grade level onward. Students generally have a ton of homework and are usually expected by both the parents and their teachers to be doing homework almost all night. They may have soccer or something like that after school, but then they study for hours and hours and hours almost every night is what it seems like. I don't know if it's because they're not productive in their studying time, which is why they seemingly study for 6 hours a night, something like that. This includes kids in college too who seem to study all weekend, all night, all the time. I don't know if it's not a productive studying, but I know, for example, when I was in school, I would take time aside and do maybe 2 hours of studying here, 3 hours here, but then you take breaks. You might do something with your friends, go to the gym, go out for a little bit, but you study in chunks. I'm generally not productive if I'm gonna say I have to study all Saturday and it's going to be an 18-hour, a 16-hour, even a 12-hour study session. You're generally not productive because no one can really study that whole time. So it's something I found that's a little bit shocking, is to see just how much effort is placed onto homework and studying here. I don't know if it's really part of the system, but it's definitely been a shock seeing that, especially in elementary school where kids study so much, where in my opinion, I think they should be going out, spending time with family, and playing with their friends. To me, that's a lot more productive than just simply studying. All right, culture shock number 6 is something I see specifically in grocery stores that I have not seen before in Spain. Now, that's because self-checkout is much more prevalent, especially in grocery stores in Spain, than it was 6 years ago. In fact, it was non-existent at that point. Nowadays, they have self-checkout in the grocery store that takes card and cash, but there are so many people who refuse to go to it. This is a big shock compared to the United States and my grocery store there, because at my grocery store in the US, honestly, it was almost all self-checkout. Maybe they had about 16 self-checkouts, which were always busy, and only 2 cashiers. Here, they might have 2 or 3 cashiers, as well as 4 self-checkouts in the grocery store by my house, but people will wait for the cashiers instead of going to the self-checkouts. This is strange whether if they have a small amount of food or a big amount of food. I understand if you have a big amount, it might just be too much to scan and bag yourself, but it's way faster, it's way easier. Again, maybe this is coming from my point of view. I don't really know when self-checkouts first became popular here. Maybe they're still super new, but I also really like it that people don't use them, because when there's a long line of people and everyone wants to go to the cashier, I can just skip ahead of them and go right for the self-checkout because they're generally open. So for me, it's better, but it's something that's kind of been a bit of a shock. Not necessarily a bad way, but a beneficial way for me. And it's just been a little bit different and something that's shocking because it's the opposite of what I'm used to in the US. Culture shock number 7 about living in Spain as an American has to do with COVID. Now, we've been living in Spain during COVID, not right at the beginning of the pandemic during the total European lockdowns, but in 2021 into 2022. And masks are still required in Spain when you go into a restaurant, when you go into a grocery store, when you are on public transportation, and even for a short time during Omicron, they were required outside. In saying that, 99.999% of people comply with it without a problem. I've never seen anyone throw a fit about having to wear a mask inside, even if it's just to wear it inside to go sit down in a restaurant and then you can take it off, or wear it inside and sit down at a table in a bar. I've never seen anyone complain. People just wear it. It's not really a big deal. And this is included in schools with children. I haven't seen one kid complain about it. They might have to be reminded to just pull it up a little bit if it falls down. But compared to the US, where people have thrown fits, I was once threatened and somebody told me this is why I have a gun when I asked them to put a mask on coming into a restaurant. And it's a total and complete shift from the US and from just public opinion there. It's honestly super refreshing just to not worry about it. You have to wear a mask. Obviously, not everybody loves wearing a mask, and that's not the point of this, is to get into that. But it's been a shock to see how easy it is for people to just simply wear them and not throw a fit. I don't know what the reason is, if people just trust in politicians, trust in science a little bit more here, or maybe they just don't do their own research here. But it's something that's really nice, and it's just nice not to have to deal with a bunch of people that are freaking out about just having to wear a mask in a grocery store. People just put it on and they go in and it's not a big deal. Same with public transportation, same with schools, same with restaurants and bars. It's not a big deal, and it's been kind of a shock just that I haven't seen a single person really complain about it at all. All right, before I get to our last culture shock about living in Spain, which is something that everyone will experience whether you're traveling to Spain or moving to Spain, I just want to say, if you're liking this video, please give us a thumbs up down below. That really helps us out, and make sure to subscribe for all new videos that we release about life abroad in Spain, as well as a bunch of local experiences we're having traveling in Madrid and throughout the rest of Spain. It really helps out our channel and we really appreciate it, so we can keep making these videos for you. Culture shock number 8. Now, this one's also at a grocery store. However, it's something that is really beneficial actually, and something I really like. So when you are buying a beer at a grocery store, you can get them in 6-packs. They come in the 6-pack holders, sort of the little plastic rings that you have to cut up before you throw them out. But you can also buy them individually. You can just pop the can off and buy individual cans. They have a price for 6, but they also have a price for individual cans, which is generally how we buy them, because maybe you don't want a full 6-pack at home or a 12-pack or something like that. You just want to buy one can, or you want to buy one can and sample a bunch of different ones. So that's something we did, and it's been super beneficial for our tasting videos. I really like that, instead of having to buy everything in bulk like you do in the US. So that concludes our main culture shocks about living in Spain. If you've had any culture shocks or disagree or agree with any of ours, we'd love to hear that in the comments below. I'm sure there's some you've experienced and we've missed, or other things that maybe you just disagree with. We're learning as we go. Like I said, we've only lived here for 6 months, so we're continuing to learn and explore this beautiful country of Spain. Make sure to check out our other videos about living in Spain and traveling around Spain, and we'll see you over there. Bye!